Welcome to Movie Friends. We are your hosts, Seth and Michelle, and today we are talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show from 1975. Directed by Jim Sharman, written by Richard O'Brien and Jim Sharman, cinematography by Peter Shasitsky, edited by Graham Clifford, composed by Richard Hartley, costume design by Sue Blaine, starring Tim Curry, Susan Sarandon, Barry Bostwick, Richard O'Brien, Peter Hinwood, Patricia Quinn, Nell Campbell, and Meatloaf. Michelle, how are you?
And Meatloaf.
Michelle, you're back.
I am back. Whoa.
It's crazy.
I know. Like this time last week, well, I was asleep probably. But yeah, we did all British things last Wednesday.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. You're like, what
Did
does
you
that
have
mean?
tea?
That is what he did. Yes.
Yeah.
Seth, we went to a very fancy afternoon tea. And
okay.
It was so good. And we had scones and desserts and little sandwiches. I'll send you pictures because you were like, send me pictures. Oh, no. Seth goes, did you take pictures?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, about 1 million. That just made me LOL because I'm like, I traveled and didn't take any pictures.
Well, who knows? I don't know.
True. I guess people have different traveling styles, but.
So I will say a lot of times when there's an event or if I'm on a trip or something, I will come to the end of it and realize I took no pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm always like,
I have that problem when I see friends. I never take pictures with my friends. And it's like it didn't happen, but I took a lot of video. A lot of video on the trip.
I think the last picture I took with my best friend was probably 10 years ago, maybe,
right? I know Krista and I never take pictures together. But London was great. England was great.
I wrote a little ditty about your return.
You wrote a ditty?
Yeah.
Seth is swatting flies as we speak.
Mosquitoes. It's crazy.
Mosquitoes.
It goes like this. Guess who's back? From England. Michelle's back. On Movie Friends. And then that's it.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
Yeah.
Nice. I like it. Thank you.
It was a sad week.
I don't think it was though, because your episode with Jean was. I listened to her read the reviews as a Long Island mom, which was fantastic.
It was pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, I think Jean Marie should just always be around.
But you know what though, for behind the scenes stuff,
yeah,
normally we're like texting each other and like asking questions and doing stuff, and the whole week I was just like, oh, it's just me. Like, for anyone out there who runs a podcast just by themselves and they just have guests on, that must be a very lonely existence.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of weird.
Yeah, it wasn't like anything earth-shattering. It wasn't like I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Right.
It was just like, the friends part of the show was gone.
Yeah. Also, it was weird too when I got home and I texted you and I was like, hey, how was the club? I was like, this is the longest I've gone without talking to Seth in like a year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The club was weird, honestly.
I mean, I really want to hear about it in detail, but you can tell me at my Halloween party on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So while you were in England, did you hear anyone and like maybe like, your head was turned and you thought, oh, that's Seth?
No.
Because like my British accents are so like spot on. Like, were you just like...
Sadly to report that never occurred once. So hate to burst your bubble.
No one like put their hand on your shoulder and were like, oi, lass!
No!
Do you know the way to the tubes? The tubes station?
Do you know the way to the tubes? No, that did not happen.
So you were like in London.
So we did the Cotswolds, which is the English countryside, in these little villages. And then last Monday, as Aunt and I called it our work day. We went to this, I don't know, one of Aunt's work associates that he knows, and we toured a factory for 3 hours. And
Yeah.
then which was, great fun for me. And then
Sure,
after
sure.
that,
A British factory.
well, no, they sell gas springs. I don't know. Aunt is in the hinge business,
Whoa.
so
Okay. Yes, yes.
yeah. And then after that, we drove to where my friends live, Dom and Simon, who host the Ravens podcast, and I got to meet them in person for the first time, which is really funny because I've been saying Dom and Simon, and my mom thought they were a couple. And I was like, oh,
Got
no,
it.
no, they're just best friends. And they have a podcast. I got a good laugh at that. I have to tell them about that. And
Shout
then,
out to Dom and Simon
yeah,
on the
man,
Ravens podcast.
if you're into One Tree Hill and movies, go check them out. We talk shop, and that was fun. So, and then we spent the rest of the time in London, and we did so much, Seth.
Like, okay. So much that you can't even name one thing.
Well, no, we went to a football game. We did a Jack the Ripper tour. We went to an afternoon
Awesome.
tea. We went on a tour of London's bathrooms. It's called
That's awesome.
And the girl walked around with a plunger. So that was fun.
That's pretty cool.
We went to the Harry Potter studio tour and saw the sets.
Very cool.
So cool.
That must have been a dream come true for Anthony.
Oh, yeah. That was really cool. We did like British things like the crown jewels and royalty and all that stuff. Wow.
Nice.
We did so much.
So good trip?
Yeah. It was okay.
Cool. And then somewhere in the middle of that, on an airplane, you watched Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Actually, I wanted to start with this, but we flew Virgin Atlantic going.
Okay.
And it's just like a fun party line, I think. But I don't know when the last time you've been on a plane, but the flight attendants will stand in the aisles and they'll like do the safety precautions and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, Virgin Atlantic, they made like an animated movie with all of that. And it's literally a short. And in the movie, the guy falls asleep and he's imagining hearing all the safety precautions, but it's intertwined with different movies. And they used 2001: A Space Odyssey in their own way.
Awesome.
I was like, oh my God, it's hell.
Awesome.
Yeah. I thought of you.
They did not use they didn't use Frankenfurter?
No. I mean, maybe
what is that?
maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think that made it in.
So normally during the show, when Michelle watches a movie for the first time, she records her thoughts, but Michelle was on an airplane, and that probably wouldn't have worked too well.
Yeah, and honestly, I should have done it before I left, but I was having a mini panic attack, so it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Yeah.
So you start this movie on the plane. Are you like surrounded with people?
Well, yeah. I mean, I also want to just start with the fact that I started with watching Pompoko.
Okay.
And if you've seen that movie, you know. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to go into Rocky Horror just right after. Yeah. And maybe that's okay, but I think sometimes you have to be in a mindset for certain movies. And
yeah.
It definitely wasn't in a mindset for Pompoko and definitely wasn't in a mindset for Rocky Horror.
Yeah, that's a strange double feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I ended up watching like 75% of Rocky Horror on the plane because I kept falling asleep because I was tired, not because Rocky Horror was boring. Sure. And then I ended up watching Billy Elliot and Bridget Jones' Diary just to keep with the English flair.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Even though Rocky Horror, you know, the London theater.
Yeah. Oh, it's very...
So it fits.
Yeah, absolutely. Very British.
Yes.
So, I mean, hey.
Hey. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. I truly didn't, Seth.
Yes.
And I said it last episode when I came in from my trip to talk about that we were doing this.
Yeah.
I said I didn't know anything about this movie, and I truly didn't, except for just the red lips. Like I knew that was a part of it. Mm-hmm. I truly had no idea. And so watching it, I was like, wow, this was not what I was expecting. And then I was like, oh my God, the time warp. This is
Yeah.
what this is from?
Yeah. Oh, you knew that song?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you do it at every wedding, every party.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm not getting invited to the time warp weddings.
Oh, man. I mean, we could do it Saturday at my party. Should I play it?
Well,
It's a Halloween party song.
it's true. It is. It is a Halloween party song. Will you do the time warp?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We could teach it.
Sure.
Anyway, so yeah.
So you're really blindsided by this movie. Coming off of a Studio Ghibli.
Correct. With those raccoons. And then, like, literally no pause. Just went right into. I was just like, okay, great. Let's do this.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, in these horrible conditions and strange mindset, not finishing the movie in one go,
Right.
resuming it several days later.
Yeah.
How did you feel about this movie?
Well, I think it can have an effect on you if you're needing it.
Okay.
And I expressed to you that I was having trouble with this one because I needed to just understand it a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay.
And I knew this was important. I really wanted, and I knew it was a play, a musical.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, which came first? And then we were supposed to go to a live performance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I kept that in mind. I'm like, oh, maybe this is like more fun if you go see it in person and you participate. So I had a lot of feelings. This one I felt so different compared to all the movies we've done. This one I felt the most disconnected from, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know, like, we had briefly talked about the movie and your thoughts, and you had said something like that, like, maybe like the place in your life that you're in right now, it's just not really for you.
Yeah. I think this is like a really important movie for those who need it at the time. And that's me like thinking really deep. Like you could just watch this movie and be totally entertained and be like, what am I watching? The music is great. Tim Curry is amazing. Like everybody is so good. You're just like, wait, what? That you also know there's lasers and they're aliens, I think.
Yes.
And then Meatloaf has right. So but I think it can be very important for those who need it, who need to feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't think I'm in a part of my life where this is very important to me. This is not an important film to me personally.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I completely understand that.
Right.
This movie is really weird. And it is trying to be really weird.
Yeah.
Like on purpose.
Right.
Like I don't think anyone who made this movie or participated in the writing or the acting, if someone was like, oh, this is really weird, I don't think that they would turn around and be like, well, no, you just don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that being weird is, it is like the purpose of it. So my first question for you is, do you think that this is the weirdest movie that we've done so far?
I don't. I think Miami Connection is the weirdest movie.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because like even though this is very strange, in my mind I feel that all musicals are ridiculous.
Yes, absolutely.
So if something's a musical, it's already in its own category of like it's not real. You can't take it that serious. And I'm not saying like Les Mis, right? Because that's such an emotional one.
Sure.
Or Phantom, right? But even that, it's a little like they just start singing. Anytime you just start singing, it's not real life. So no, Miami Connection to me is the weirdest movie we've done.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I did not see this movie until I was probably in my 20s.
Uh-huh. How'd you find it?
Well, I always knew about it. I was always aware of this movie. My older brothers owned a VHS copy of it, I believe. And just like looking at like the artwork and the cover, the cover was probably the lips with Tim Curry like sitting in it. I was
Nice.
like, what is this movie? Like, this is definitely something that I am not allowed to watch.
Were you like in Christmas Story, like electric sex? And you're like,
Not quite that. More just like I definitely can't watch this movie. If I
yeah,
do and I get caught, I'm gonna be in trouble. Like I wasn't like, oh, I want to watch this movie. I also, when I was younger, I really wasn't into horror. And this is not a horror movie, really.
no,
We're
right.
doing this as part of our Frankenstein series, obviously, but like just the name and like the kind of like blood splattered logo, I was like, oh, this is horror. I'm not really interested in that. But our mutual friend Krista, shout out to Krista, one time her and I were hanging out, and I think her dad like called her, and he was like, "Hey, there's gonna be a shadow cast of Rocky Horror Picture Show, like tonight. I'm gonna take you." And Krista was like, "Oh, okay, Seth is here. Can he come too?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so I just called my mom to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go with Krista to see Rocky Horror Picture Show," and she was like, "You are not going to see."
Mrs. Vargas was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I was like super bummed out because it's like when you're a teenager and your friends, you know how horrible it is when you're a kid and you have to go to your friends and be like, I can't go.
Yeah, because your parents said
Like,
no.
oh, go without me. Or like, don't wait for me. I don't know if I can go yet.
I'm
And
not
then they
allowed.
leave and your parents 10 minutes later are like, yeah, you can go. And it's like, well, it's too late now because we didn't have
Yeah.
cell phones and,
Yep.
it's like they're gone. I
Yeah.
feel like that FOMO was
It was a big deal.
hard when you're 14, 15 years old. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I didn't see this movie for a really long time. And when I did finally see it, my connection to it was the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Because in that, the friend group that kind of brings Charlie in, they're like weirdos and they're
Mm-hmm.
really into going to, the live shows of Rocky Horror Picture Show and like acting in them. And Charlie, I think, is made to play Rocky one night, and you have to be in your underwear for that. And he's in the
Yeah.
book; he's very shy, and um, so that was kind of like the gist. Like I kind of got the gist of it, and then watching it, I enjoyed it mostly for the music and all of like the film references.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Because
yeah,
it's an homage to
yeah,
some
and
horror movies.
and then rewatching it for this, I definitely still enjoy it, but the only thing that it just kept running through my head was like, oh, not that it's not a good movie, but like this is not something that I'm going to go to bat for. Like
Yeah.
if like it's exactly what I just said to you. If someone was like, "This movie is really weird," I would just say, "Yes, it is."
Right.
And if you don't like it, I really can't blame you.
Yeah. Right. And but it holds its place. And I know we're going to talk about that. And when I think about it, and I think it was like adjacent to me because
Hmm.
I think Glee did it. Like Glee covered the music.
Probably, yeah.
And then in Sex Education, did you ever watch Sex Education
No.
on Netflix? I love it. It's a great show, but two of the characters, they go and they see like the live shadow cast performance of it. So I
Hmm.
always like knew, like, it was always around me. I just never went into it. And so I asked Krista, actually, I was like, how do you feel about Rocky Horror? Because I know, you said you saw it with your dad. She's like, I don't remember anything. I was like, oh, okay. So the performance you saw wasn't that memorable.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just because she saw it at Bald Hill. So maybe
Yeah.
it was just too vast of
Yeah.
a theater experience. But I can imagine seeing it in person and with the participation level and the props would feel different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever go to a live
No.
performance?
No.
Shadowcast? No. Would you?
I would. I
I know, right?
would, but like, for, in getting feedback on this movie from people and reading about it pretty obsessively,
Yeah.
um, from what I understand, it can be like a lot,
Yeah.
and there are times where I really like being in a theater that's loud and funny and people are talking and, we're all having a good time. And then there are times, dude, I am the guy in the theater when someone's talking or on their phone, I'm not going to sit there and stew for 2 hours. Here's my go-to line. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I may have said this on the show already, but I'm going to say it again.
Mm-hmm.
Very sternly, I say to them, hey, are you going to talk during the entire movie or just right now? I just want to know. And then it's never not worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can do both. I can appreciate both. And yeah. So I kind of don't want to go and like just be annoyed the whole time. And
I just kept thinking about if we would have went,
Mhm.
how I would have no idea what I'm getting into. And
Yeah.
how I probably would have been like, oh, and especially if I was chosen to
Oh yeah.
participate, because you're a virgin the first time you go. I would just want to probably observe. I don't know if I could have gotten,
Sure.
because I love going to live performances. I love musicals, but this is like the movie's playing and people are just like acting it out as it's playing.
This is something that has taken on its own life
Yeah.
and like the subculture of people that have kept this movie alive. This is the longest running movie in history, which is crazy. It's
Right.
crazy that this movie that completely flopped when it came out has this type of following. And like we say cult, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
that's a cult movie.
Mhm.
There are no cult movies like Rocky Horror Picture Show. There just are not. Nothing compares to the level of like dedication of the group of people who have kept this going for decades now. It literally ran until COVID, and even during COVID, they were doing like internet shows. And as soon
Wow.
as they could, the movie reopened, and
Yeah.
it's great. Like people are not doing that for Star Wars. People are not doing that
No.
for Napoleon Dynamite or any, Miami Connection. Sure, I mean, those movies are still alive and they have vibrant fan bases, but Rocky Horror Picture Show is something completely different. Um, Before we kind of get away from the opening, I did want to ask you how you felt, especially not knowing anything except for the lips, right?
Mhm.
The movie starts and these lips kind of come into frame.
Yeah.
What did you think about the
I was
opening?
very into it.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
very, very, and also I was also like really excited to watch this because knowing it was a musical, which Aunt and I, the night before, we saw Back to the Future the musical in
Oh,
London,
yeah.
which I wish it's something you would see, because you would probably just be like, this is the most ridiculous musical I've ever seen, because that's
Wait,
how you
you
feel about
saw it?
Back to the Future. Yeah, we went and saw it in London.
Oh my god. How did you not mention that in all of the list of
I know,
things?
because as I said, we did so much.
Wow.
But like the
Wow.
London theater is equivalent to Broadway. It's just so much cheaper. And so we had really good seats and
Yeah,
we got like 2-for-1 tickets. It was so great. You know how I feel about Back to the Future.
of
We know how
course.
you feel about Back to the Future.
Of
But
course.
as a musical, it's ridiculously amazing. And so I was like ready for another musical experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so going into Rocky Horror and seeing this opening with just the lips and the black icon, I mean, the black background, I loved it. And then I've had that song stuck in my head the whole time.
I
It's great.
it's
I love it.
it's maybe the best song in the show.
I agree. I mean, that's my favorite song. I mean, I've seen it once now,
Yeah.
so
So I
yeah.
have been listening to Science Fiction Double Feature
Uh-huh.
on repeat for like over a month now.
Wow.
Just because I've been, I don't know why there are certain movies. There are certain movies that I feel comfortable talking about, and then there are certain movies where I'm like, oh, I really need to like absorb this to like kind of do it justice. And this movie has been one of them.
I can
And
understand that.
yeah, and like some look, some songs in this movie are not good. I'm just gonna say that. Like they're not great. But some of them are really amazing, and Science Fiction Double Feature is definitely my favorite song from the
Yeah.
show.
And I think it really sets you up. for what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So it had me pumped. So to
Okay.
say I was at like the top and I was like, yes. And then I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and then
I'm just trying to absorb it now.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, ooh. Yeah, I had a feeling. I was like, Michelle likes body part stuff,
I
you
do.
know? And so I was
I
like,
weirdly do. Yeah.
I have a feeling that just like focusing, and what I love about it is they're not like perfectly straight teeth, and even like the
Yeah.
lipstick, you can see like where the lipstick stops and like the color of the
Uh-huh.
actual lip is. It's very odd and gritty and like dirty. I don't know.
But not really dirty.
Not like dirty teeth, just like
Yeah.
it's weird. You know, if you take a beautiful person, but you like look at their ear
Oh,
for 3
yeah.
minutes straight, eventually you're going to be like, oh, what's going on
Right.
with that?
Right.
Like anything doesn't look beautiful after you look at it for long enough, or like
Yeah.
pull up your favorite celebrity and look at their nostrils for a long time. You'll be like, oh, okay, odd.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I really love the beginning.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good.
So, I want to talk about the similarities between this and Frankenstein.
Yeah. Good job, Seth. My goodness.
Thanks.
My goodness. Wow.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you just accept it and move on. That was a compliment. That's what we call that.
Okay.
Okay. We can
So,
move on now. Yeah.
Brad and Janet, they show up in a storm, just like Elizabeth and Vincent, on the night that Frankenstein is conducting his experiment. Frankenfurter loses control of Rocky, which is like this man that he has created to like, I don't know if it's quite like be his, it's not like quite like, oh, this is going to be like my life partner, but it's this creature that he's created, to control the power of life, but also to like love him.
Yeah, isn't it just so his sexual toy?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But he loses control of the monster, just like Frankenstein does. The character, Rocky Horror, which is the monster, he sings this song, which I think is maybe my least favorite song in the show. And it's all about just how miserable he is. Which is so weird because like he is just born and
doesn't
right
he only
away.
he has like the abnormal brain. And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
not that you can't be, that sounds actually pretty bad, that if you have an abnormal brain, you can't be sad. But just the functionality of it, right?
Yeah.
Because when Frankenstein's monster is first, he's like can't talk and he's all, and then we have Rocky who's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, and he's just like, my life is a misery, and so even though he looks very different from any of the Frankenstein monsters that we've seen, he is still being posed as this like tragic character.
Yeah. Right.
Like you mentioned, the abnormal brain. We learn later on in the movie that Eddie, Frankenfurter took half of Eddie's brain and put it into Rocky Horror. And we learn also later that Eddie is like incredibly violent and like didn't like his teddy bear as a child. So he was like very violent and yeah.
Yeah.
And then Riff Raff torments Rocky with fire.
As one does when you're in that role.
It's just a universal truth, whether you're Fritz or whether you are Riff Raff or Igor or
That's
Igor. Right. I don't know. You gotta.
Do you know the actor who played Riff Raff was 31?
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make you feel?
Well, sure does, Seth. Sure does.
Yeah, and that's Richard O'Brien who wrote the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we already mentioned him, but Tim Curry as Frankenfurter. How are you feeling?
Wow. I mean, I'm fixated on him the entire time.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're the hotel clerk from Home Alone.
Yeah.
who does the the Grinch grin.
Yeah.
No, Tim Curry's amazing in this.
I I think of him as Pennywise.
Okay.
Yeah. Still kind of an evil character.
Yeah.
A lot of people who like have pretty serious problems with this movie are all like, "Oh, how can you make Frankenfurter sympathetic?" And I don't find him sympathetic at all. Like he's pretty clearly a mad scientist, murderer, not
Yeah.
good guy.
He's pretty manic.
It's just that the charisma of Tim Curry, I think, kind of like lures you into, you're interested in what's on the screen, and you're
Yes.
interested in this performance, and so I think it's hard to keep in your brain like this is not a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a problem with a lot of movies. Like one of the big so Martin Scorsese's new movie Killers of the Flower Moon came out last week, and
Yes.
it has people really divided because Leonardo DiCaprio is in it, and it's not a spoiler to say he's not a good guy, but he's the person that we're following for most of the movie. And so people are like, well, why did you make him sympathetic when Scorsese didn't make him sympathetic? It's just that we're with him for so long. So there's
Right.
this odd, we've been trained to like the person that we're following or the person that we're focusing on primarily, that's the hero and that's the person, that we're supposed to like sympathize and empathize with. But I don't get that at all from Frankenfurter. He kills Eddie with a pickaxe and then feeds Eddie's leg to them at dinner.
Right. I mean, and he also kind of takes advantage of Brad and Janet,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
also awakens them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also without permission, but also with permission.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Here's how I feel about all of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And you can say that I'm not trying to make excuses for this movie. I'm not, like I said, I am not going to bat for this movie. It's a movie that's being weird and shocking for the sake of being weird and shocking. The main characters, Brad and Janet, they're like fainting as they witness the time warp dance being done. The whole thing is about just trying to press buttons and get the normies to be weirded out.
Right. And
And
also
so,
with a thread of sexual fluidity.
mm-hmm,
And that, yeah, love comes in many forms and
mm-hmm.
you can sexually express yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily see that as like as like a necessarily like a celebration of that, as it is just like presenting that to people to weird them out.
Huh.
And that's how all of the like icky stuff in this doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that goes with at the top. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. And that's why I have such a weird connection to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, I'm not weirded out. I mean, I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm here for it, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not grossed out. I don't feel weird about it. I just don't think it was for me
Sure.
at this time. But it's
Right.
fun to talk about. I
Yeah.
mean, you know.
Yeah. I'm just not like, oh, how could you do this to Frankenfurter? How could you make him do these terrible
No,
things? He
no.
means something to me. It's like he's a bad guy. And not only that, he's an alien.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
right. Right. Can we talk about Susan Sarandon?
Absolutely.
When I think of Susan Sarandon, I think of Little Women.
Yeah.
I think of Stepmom,
Mm-hmm.
Thelma and Louise now.
Yep.
I had no idea she was in this. And then when she started singing, I was like, is that her voice? Like, this is like a whole new side
Yeah.
of Susan Sarandon. What did you think of her in this?
Oh man. It's very tough apart from Tim Curry.
Right.
It's very tough to judge the acting of these actors. One of the things that I watched, they said the direction for the acting was make it like B movie acting. and the direction for the musical parts were make it rock and roll dreams come true. And so in the music, they're supposed to be very, flamboyant and energetic. But then in the acting, it's supposed to be what it is. And so in that regard, they all did a wonderful job because it's
Yeah.
bad. It's not it's not good. But that's what they're setting out to do. This is a send up and a love letter to all of the bad horror and sci-fi movies that this generation of artists grew up watching that inspired them. And you know it would be like nowadays watching something that's parodying like the OC or One Tree Hill. You wouldn't blame them for acting the way that they're
Yeah.
acting because they're emulating something else.
Right.
So all that to say, oof, Susan Sarandon. when
Like, doesn't it seem so out of place?
Oh,
Not it,
definitely. We're used to
but
seeing
not
her.
at the same time. It's just like, I'm used to seeing her in these roles that you're like, oh, wow, so
Yeah,
young,
yeah.
1975, Susan.
Very young Susan Sarandon, and yeah, very different from how we're used to seeing her. And what's crazy is, had this movie gone the way of any normal flop movie, we maybe wouldn't have even seen her in this role.
Mm.
It just would have disappeared.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, her singing voice is it's pretty interesting. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say it's bad, but it's interesting.
Yeah. It's perfect for Janet.
Yeah. um, I did want to quickly mention, like, Tim Curry, he has such an odd relationship with the camera, and like the character just right away we're looking at the camera. At one point, he's drinking water, and then he throws the water at the camera. When have you
Yeah.
ever seen that?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. That's literally like a rock star on stage. You know what I mean? Like that type of like performance, and it works so well in the movie. I think because he's coming off of doing this play for 2 years,
Wow.
and he's interacting with the camera as if he would be interacting with people in the crowd, like looking them in the eye and playing to them, where everyone else is playing in this like B movie. He's like, I feel like his character is not only like better than everybody else's, but he also has like that freedom of like connecting with us as the audience. And so that's part of the reason why I think he kind of stands above everybody else and like just seems to stand out so much.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
Yeah.
Also, I just feel like anything goes.
Yeah.
Like, you get to a point in this movie where, like, all right, I'm accepting anything and everything that's thrown at me right now.
Well,
There
I
are
mean,
no rules. There are no rules. I have no expectations.
mm-hmm.
Show me what you got.
So you had texted me that you weren't able to finish it on the film, and I think you said something like, "Yeah, I've got like 20 minutes left," and I
Yeah.
just laughed, and I was like, "Well, you kind of haven't seen anything yet, then."
Well, that's another thing too, because I'm on the plane and I'm like, I'm like kind of dozing off and I'm also like not feeling it. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, I only have 20 minutes left. Like, but what actually happened? I think I'm like waiting for like something. And I'm like, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's not this. That's
Mm-hmm.
not this. We'll
Mm-hmm.
finish this. Then I got home, tried it again. I didn't even tell you this, tried it again while I was folding laundry. And I'm like, you know what? Let's not be distracted for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
So,
undivided attention.
the last 20 minutes, we get like almost a different movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird.
This is more where the sci-fi part instead of the horror part kicks in. But also like there's a huge tonal shift. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like that last song. This would probably be my second favorite song. Rose Tint My World, which is the song that plays as they're all becoming like unstatued.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Yeah. um yeah, it's just like everything changes, and then we go from an empty theater to a theater full of like rich old white people in furs as if it's an opera. And so how did you feel about that kind of?
Yeah. I honestly, I was just like I really thought I'm like, okay, I think I'm missing a bigger picture here.
Okay.
Like this means more with the audience there. And honestly, what got me, I was like, oh, we're in a pool now.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
just we're floating
Yep.
in the pool.
Yep.
And what sealed the deal, truly sealed the deal, was Riff Raff and the lasers. And
Yes. It's nuts.
I was like, this might be the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to just comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was legit my thoughts. I'm like, I'm kind of into this right now. Like, I'm really into
Yeah, Magenta gets the Bride of Frankenstein
love that. And
hair.
like, what an iconic, to me, would be like an iconic couple's costume to a party
Sure,
to
absolutely.
go as those two.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, this is great. At the lasers, I'm like, yeah, I'm into this now. I'm really into this now. How do you feel about the last 20 minutes? Like, you're asking me, but like, do you remember first seeing this and what you feel? And
I
then
just
the
re-
lasers come out?
I was just like, dude, what is this kind of,
Right,
yeah, like
right, right.
I mean, yeah, the first time I watched it, definitely finding out that Riff Raff and Magenta are supposed to be brother and sister.
Yeah.
I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that makes all of your interactions prior to this feel different.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then I was also confused, like, are they actually his servants? Where did the hump go?
Right. Where'd the hump go?
What
But then I'm like, it's okay. The hump left. It's
why are
fine.
you doing this whole Frankenstein act if you're aliens? But
Yeah.
again, I don't care. Like I
Right.
truly
Right.
I feel like I get this movie on a deep level of just understanding how fun it is to mess with people.
Yeah, and I think I just have a very big respect for it of like you said, like the longest theatrical release, the cult following, what it means to everyone, like much respect. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so campy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And like, if I was going to criticize this like a film, I would say cut several songs. We can cut down a little bit on the runtime to make it not feel a little draggy. You know what I mean? But I just don't care. I don't. None of that matters to me. And
Mm-mm.
it's not like, oh, I love it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I know there's tons of things wrong with it, but it just doesn't matter. Like,
No.
and even if it has perhaps slow parts, you can't deny that this movie is incredibly fun to watch and just weird, you know? It's like going to see like some kind of performance art and you
Exactly.
walk away and you're like, I didn't understand that, but you know what? I'm going to remember this.
Do you remember the scene in She's All That? Have you seen She's
Of
All That?
course, of course.
And she does performance arts and
Yes.
she's part of it and it's like this whole thing and then he goes up there and he's like, ha, ki, sa,
Yes.
trying to fit in. But before that, where he's viewing it, that's how I felt. I felt like Freddie Prinze
Mhm.
watching the performance art where I'm like, okay, I don't
Mhm.
really get it, but also I
Mhm.
get it. And also you don't need to get it. And I think not getting it is me getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too like obviously it's crazy to not talk about like the the characters of Brad and Janet, right? They go through this like sexual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
They have two very different responses to it. Brad is like calling for his mommy and like praying for this dream to end, and Susan Sarandon's character is feeling like she is awake for the first time, and there's a lot to be said for all of that too. So like I'm not just trying
Yes.
to be like this movie doesn't mean anything. I'm just
No.
saying don't take this so seriously. You're completely missing the point of just like I said, like sometimes it's just fun to be weird and silly and freak people out.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make this like my favorite movie or anything.
Is there anyone in your life where this is their favorite?
I don't know. I don't think so. So yeah, anyway, the big tonal shift. I mean, I think Tim Curry's last song is pretty great. Um, it definitely, it's captivating. The whole idea, like I'm going home and I would like to come back and stay, and the ship, the castle blasts off with a rainbow, and so it's definitely like evocative of the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's it's pretty it's pretty cool. I did really quickly want to mention just that I love meatloaf.
Do you? What's
Oh, I
what's your
love.
relationship with Meatloaf? Because Meatloaf is another, Paradise by the Dashboard Light is what plays
Yes.
at every wedding and everybody
Yes.
performance
Yeah.
performs it.
So I did not go to school, as I've talked about many times. And if I
Yeah.
did, I probably would have been too cool to try out for any plays. I am definitely like a theater person that never has been in the theater. I'm very, very drawn to Meatloaf's like music outside of this because
Mm-hmm.
it's very theatrical. It's like
Mm-hmm.
super melodramatic. Um, Jim Steinman, who writes the songs and composes them, he's just got a real funny way of writing. Like the song that you mentioned, "Paradise by the Dashboard Light," that has a whole minute to 2 minute long segment where it's a baseball announcer. It's all very like funny and cheesy and corny, while at the same time like kind of taking itself very seriously, but not taking itself very seriously. And yeah, so just wanted to say, Hot Patootie is probably my second favorite song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is pretty random. I didn't expect that. And I was like,
that
what?
song.
No, Meatloaf.
Oh, just Meatloaf Strut. Oh yeah. So did you even know that he was in
No,
this?
no, I had no idea, no clue. And so when he comes riding in, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
What's okay? Hey,
yeah.
Meatloaf.
So
For a
Meatloaf
hot
talks
second.
about when he auditioned for this,
Mm-hmm.
and he sees Tim Curry in the whole get up and singing, and he's like, I left. He's like, I didn't want to be in a play with a man wearing all these clothes. Like it made him like
Yeah.
super, super uncomfortable. But so in the stage play, he played both Eddie and Eddie's uncle.
Uh-huh.
So when he comes around and he's like, Eddie was my nephew, it's not quite like a punchline, but it's supposed to be like,
That's
because
pretty funny.
like when one character leaves, then another character,
Yeah.
the same actor
Oh
shows up
yeah.
as a different character, and so it would have a different, very different feel to it watching it on
Yeah.
stage. One of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up is like Rocky Horror was a complete bomb, but if we look at it in the context of like middle of the 70s, this play ran for 2 years prior to the film coming out. David Bowie was a big fan of this. Keith Moon was a fan. Elvis Presley was a fan of this. Carol Kane was also a fan of the play. And the play is definitely really influenced by like glam rock that was happening at the time, like the early 70s to about 1975, 1974 ish. David Bowie was doing like Ziggy Stardust. Um, there was Gary Glitter and T Rex. And in 1975, that's when that kind of started to like peter out. And then at the same time in 1975 is when punk started to kind of pop up like all over the place. Like whenever people talk about punk music and its origins, they'll always talk about England, of course. They'll talk about New York, but at the same time in Detroit, you had the MC5, you had Iggy Pop and the Stooges. I think it was the early version of Iggy Pop. I can't remember what their name was. And you had this band called Death, which was an all black punk band that, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine like hearing that music in 1975 without the context of punk. If you listen to it now, you're like, oh yeah, this is punk music. But at the time, it must have been just like really intense and strange and like what is happening. And after 1975, 76, yeah, so 76 is when the Ramones' first album comes out. In 1975, the British band The Undertones come out. So when we get the Sex Pistols coming out. In 19, and then in 76, we get The Damned and Susie and the Banshees. And like all of these acts are borrowing like little bits from glam, but it's just it's just like the punk attitude of we don't really care what you think and we're going to do something weird and we're going to not just play music to make you happy and like get you hooked, but we're going to be performing almost like as these characters. Like, you know, the Ramones, they all adopt the same last name and they have like a uniform that they wear, similar to the Beach Boys. Like the Beach Boys, they, you know, in their early years, they all wore the same thing. And the Ramones, I don't know the last time you listened to the Ramones, but listen to the Beach Boys early stuff and listen to the Ramones, it's the same. You know, like
Really?
oh yeah. It's just simplified and louder and faster and so there's this thing with Rocky Horror kind of being in the middle of all of that. I don't want to say like, oh, Rocky Horror inspired what would come after it because not a lot of people saw it.
Right.
But like looking at the 70s as this kind of transition from like the rock and roll of the 50s into kind of the hippie psychedelics of the 60s into glam rock of the 70s and then the punk of the later 70s and the 80s, you can see I can see Rocky Horror like just in the middle of that, like holding both hands. And yeah, I mean, if you look at like a lot of the costumes, a lot of the looks, and then you look at early punk music, it's all over, you know, it's all over it. So like I said, the play ran for like 2 years before
Yeah.
filming like he began, and it was a huge hit. Like it was really, really successful. And so, you know, what you do with a successful play is you turn it into a movie. Brad, the actor who plays Brad, he was the original Danny Zuko for
Oh,
Grease.
wow.
Yeah. And obviously in England, you know, they had British people playing Brad and Janet, but for the movie, they wanted to bring in American actors, and so that's why they got those two. The movie comes out in 1975, right? Total flop. It makes $300,000 against his budget, not a lot of money at all, and just kind of disappears. In January of 1978, they there were 35 prints of this movie in circulation when they're doing midnight showings. By the end of 1978, there were 202 prints in circulation. So 4 years after the movie, or you know, 3.5 years after the movie premieres, they have, I don't know, I don't even know the math of that.
It's a good increase.
More than quadrupled the amount of
Right.
print. That's unheard. That's insane. Like that's
Yeah.
just that's nuts. The fans who saw it hundreds of times. Like they weren't just like, oh yeah, I saw that movie and I liked it, and I saw it again. They were going to see it every midnight showing that it was playing, and it started in New York, the Waverly Theater in Greenwich Village. They opened April Fool's Day. They started playing at midnight, and the showings became so successful that they started, you know, the distributors started calling theaters like in cities around the country, and they were like, do this as a midnight showing, and it worked, and it worked so well that yeah, like it continually ran pretty much until COVID.
Wow. I mean, that's insane and amazing and beautiful all at the same time.
Yeah, and so like, you know, eventually it became that people were showing up dressed. You know, Carol Kane, apparently she came to watch the play like
Oh
dressed
my
up
God.
in
I love
costume.
it. I love it.
And the people who were big supporters of the movie, they became kind of like celebrities themselves, like within the Rocky Horror community.
Did you go to the main website, like rockyhorror.com?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, there's so much information
Yeah, it's totally
on
nuts.
there.
Sal Piro was like the lead of the fan club,
Yeah.
and he would organize all these different events. Dory Hartley, they say that she was like the first female to do Frankenfurter, and
Mm-hmm.
people, wanted her autograph and wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be around her. She's actually on Instagram. She's an artist.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool
Oh,
to look up.
wow. That is cool.
And yeah, they just described it as like a never-ending costume party, and like you like costumes, and
I do.
you would go
I
there,
do.
and at first it was just the queer community in New York that kind of took it and like ran with it and made it their own thing, but then it just transformed into like an everybody, for everybody kind of
Right.
thing where people could go and you dress up and you can be that character, and then when it's over you kind of go about your life. And yeah, it's like I said, there's really nothing like this. And while I don't think that this is necessarily like a great movie, I do think for bringing this movie and presenting it to you, this is an incredibly important movie in terms of American culture, and film history. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And theater culture too.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And,
Yeah.
people think it's incredibly annoying.
Well, then it's just not for them.
It's just not for them, And,
Yeah.
kind of like punk music. Like if you
Right.
go and you see people like slamming into each other and like getting bloody noses and jumping off of equipment into the crowd, you could stand there and be like, okay, I'm leaving.
This isn't for me.
Or you could stand there and be like, wow, like this is kind of what I've been looking for my entire life. And you feel that it's a place, it's a place that exists only in that room at the time.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what Rocky Horror is for people.
Mm-hmm.
Susan Sarandon said, of all the movies I've done, it will be Rocky Horror that is in the time capsule.
Wow.
Which again, like going back and looking at her performance, and
But also, like, how could it not? I mean, if I was in Rocky Horror, I'd probably feel the same.
yeah, I mean,
As long as everything was good on set and all that, right? It was like a
sure, sure.
positive. Although I read
Well,
that she was sick.
yeah, I was just
She had
gonna say
pneumonia.
things weren't really super good on set.
She like needed a heater and all of that in her trailer.
Yeah, so she's basically in her underwear for the majority of the film,
Yeah.
and they said that the castle they were filming in, when it would rain, the rain just like came in,
Yeah.
and so they were like, cold and wet for a lot of the movie, and she got pneumonia. Yeah, she said
I
during the pool scene, she was like, I should not have been doing that.
It just amazes me when you hear that actors like when they film beach scenes and it's the winter
Yeah,
and like how do they not shiver? Like the acting must be so good. Like you put me outside and it's raining or cold, there's no way I could fucking fake a happy smile.
right.
No way. Let alone, be dressed in a bikini, what have you, and just act like everything is great. It's amazing.
Yeah,
That's what impresses me. That's what impresses me.
definitely. I mean, even Tim Curry, Tim Curley, Tim Curley.
Well,
I watched the BBC went to set and was interviewing different people, and Tim Curry was talking about how difficult it is to kind of perform this. He was like, when we did the play, you're wearing the outfit and you're wearing the makeup for 2 hours, and so it's like 2 hours out of your day you're in this. He's like, but making a movie, you're in this all day, like you're
yeah.
wearing. He said like a pound and a half of makeup.
God.
And so he was very nice and polite, but you could kind of tell he was like, maybe after 2
Yeah.
years and then 6 weeks of being in this, I'm
Yeah.
not, he's ready to not be doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So in that final sequence, when we get to the don't dream it, be it,
Hmm.
which, it's a good message. It's a nice,
It's a
like, little
great
uplifting
message.
thing being sung by a insane murderer alien. mad scientist guy. But Richard O'Brien took that from a ladies' lingerie magazine ad.
The slogan?
Yeah, don't dream it, be it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was in a lingerie ad?
Yeah. Which
Mhm.
when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, I can
Mhm.
totally see
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Yep. I do have one question for you.
Sure.
Okay. Did you ever use a newspaper to keep yourself dry? I'm
No.
serious though.
No.
Okay.
No, I have not. I would not do that.
Does it bother you when this is done in movies? Because I'm like, who actually has done this?
It's very silly. It wouldn't work. That's clearly a movie newspaper because
Mm-hmm.
just put any newspaper over your head and
Right.
I mean, it's mush on your head in 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We can move on now.
Okay. One other like weird little snippet here. Richard O'Brien, there's a statue of him as the alien riffraff at the end in New
Mhm.
Zealand, in the
That's
town
cool.
where he grew up. Because he was born in Britain. They moved to New Zealand for a bit and came back to Britain. But yeah. So I don't know if you had no context for Rocky Horror and you're walking through this town and then there's just this riffraff with the ray gun
I would
statue.
take a picture of it.
Yeah.
100%. That is something I would take a picture of and
Yeah.
have Aunt pose next to it.
Rocky Horror Picture Show was made for $1.4 million. Pretty meager budget. I believe it though, you know.
Oh, good. I'm glad you believe it.
It makes less than $300,000. Huge flop. Currently, it has a 79 on Rotten Tomatoes, 4 average on Letterboxd, 65 on Metacritic. This movie was inducted into the Library of Congress National Registry of Films in 2005. I
Wow.
know.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, with I think A Raisin in the Sun was included in the same year, and
Yep. Yep.
yep.
Okay.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
On its release, Ebert gave the movie 2.5 out of 4, and he very explicitly was like, "This is a play, and it's
Yeah.
probably more fun as a play."
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, they shot it in 6 weeks, which that is kind of surprising to me, just because it's a musical. There are a lot of musical numbers in it. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
from the play they would have been pretty familiar with it, but that's a pretty intense shoot for
That's crazy,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. So we asked some friends on Twitter what they think about the movie. Felicia, who by the way has this rated as 5 stars on Letterboxd. Yeah.
Wow.
Spoiler alert. Next week's movie she also has rated as 5 stars on Letterboxd.
I can't wait to find out what next week's movie
I know.
is.
This is the Felicia double feature.
Science fiction.
Yep. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so Felicia at Cinemaroni said, I listen to this soundtrack on a regular basis. I love the film's reference to old Hollywood and how cool every character is. I want to know what your favorite songs are.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely science fiction double feature.
Yep.
Hot Patootie, Rose Tint My World. I also like Susan Sarandon's Touch It, Touch It, Touch Me. It's great. Oh, you know, sorry to take a pause here, but we did not mention Columbia. And that voice! Like, it's outrageous.
Yeah, it is outrageous.
I don't know if you saw it or not, but Jamila, good friend and patron, Jamila,
Yeah.
she posted her singing
Oh, did
Columbia's
she?
part during the time warp. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Didn't
she
see that.
nails it. Like, she does it pretty good.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
How did you feel
Yeah.
about Columbia?
I got a kick out of Columbia. I was a fan. I was a fan.
Yeah. Very much like Lena in Singing in the Rain.
Yes. Yes.
Lena
Yes.
Lamont. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't stand him. I do like the song about Eddie just once it kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
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 What about you?
Probably science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because that one is the song that like I said, it's been an earworm stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've only seen this once, and it was broken into 2 parts, and
Mhm.
I felt like I was on a roller coaster. The Time Warp is fun.
Yeah,
So,
Time Warp's good.
I enjoyed that huge musical number, and I was like, "Oh, I actually know this," so
Mhm.
I appreciated that.
My only thing about the Time Warp is the inclusion of the incredibly shrill vocals in it.
Yeah.
Like when it's like, "Let's do," and then it's like,
Do the time warp. Oh, yeah.
it's like, oh my god, like just keep that person out for, like send that person for coffee, take it again
We
while they're out, and be like, we nailed it, you
They
know.
wanna be included.
Oh man, yeah, it's a lot. Grefwire, I think.
Grefwire?
Grefwire. We've
What?
heard from Grefwire before. This is a hard word to say.
Grefwire?
Yeah, GREFFOIR.
Grefwire.
Gref,
Uh,
yeah.
oh,
At Grefwire 204 said, watching this film as a child may have made me buy.
okay. All right.
This, this thing. Dude, these people's names are so funny. The slum,
This is my favorite part of the show, by the
the
way.
Slumgullion
The Slumgullion?
at the Slumgullion. I don't know what that is. I might be saying a bad word in another language or something.
The Slum.
To me, that's like the Slumgullion sounds like a creature that crawled out of the sewer, you know?
It reminds me of like a slug. Like there's,
Sure.
oh my gosh, Matt, we don't even know what we're saying.
We
We could
don't.
be saying some bad things.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
It comes from love.
If
Just
so,
remember.
shame on you, Slumgullion.
Oh, yeah, because it's their fault.
Yeah. They say, I love the Rocky experience, but I think it's a lousy film. Plays much better on stage.
Hmm.
And then in parentheses it says, played riffraff in a shadow cast and the play.
Whoa.
And then they say, I think Shock Treatment is actually a better film. And Shock Treatment is like the sequel, a little bit, of this, which I have not seen.
What role would you want to play? Would you want to play Eddie?
Oh, God, I would want to be Eddie. Yes, absolutely. Even
Seth,
though
we gotta.
Hapatootie is really hard to sing.
I love that you're taking this so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
We got to get you in a play. I would want to be Riff Raff.
Really?
Yeah,
Mitchraff?
that's right, Mitch Raff.
Hey, it's not too late to change your
want a
Halloween
laser gun
costume.
so bad.
You know
I
what you
want a
need to
laser
do
gun.
for your Halloween party? You need to do costume changes.
I thought about it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Where maybe you greet everyone as Mitchraff,
Right.
and then
Well,
partway through you change.
I thought about which can I tell the people what my Halloween party is because it's such a movie guy party.
Yeah, when this comes out, it will be a few days after the party. So yeah.
Yeah, my Halloween party this year is Back to the Future Truman Show Matrix themed, which is I've
Back
been
to
cursing.
the Matrix show.
Hey, that's good, Seth.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "You don't have to participate in the themes."
Yeah.
And I'm going as Doc Brown, and Ant's going as the flux capacitor.
Pretty great.
Yeah, but it's such a movie guy theme.
It is.
Like, this is all the influence of this show.
Yeah.
This podcast is influenced.
Yeah. You ready to finally admit?
I'm not. No, never.
Okay.
But to go back to characters in Rocky Horror, yeah, Riff Raff would be fun to play. I mean, who do you think I should be?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's Riff Raff.
I think that you and Ant could pull off Brad and Janet.
Ugh, God.
You know.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No. Or maybe I could be the narrator.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a Friends reference.
Okay.
Miss Chandler Bond.
Uh-huh. Mr. Chandler Bong. Mm-hmm.
At Britney Queers _
Uh-huh.
Are you gonna read the Britney Spears book?
I'm on chapter 14.
Oh.
But thank you so much for asking.
Okay. How is it so far?
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm at the Justin part. So
There's
She
14 chapters
said, huh?
before we get to the Justin.
Well, it started around like chapter 12-ish.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I say this as someone who loves this movie deeply. It definitely drops off during the chase scene. Don't Dream It, Be It is a masterpiece, though.
Mm-hmm.
This person's display name is currently 3 TV emojis.
Okay, I'm into it.
Yep.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
the @ is @WatchWithWeird.
Okay.
So they said, I would say both, because I asked if this was a masterpiece or not, which is like my usual thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say both. It depends on my mood. I've seen it more times than any human should have, and the more I watch it, the more I hate it. But there's still so much to love.
Wow.
Yep.
I can't think of anything I've watched so much where I start to hate it.
Well,
Because if I hate something, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I can't speak for this person. I just know as our culture continues to progress, like
Yeah.
this movie has gone from being very offensive to straight-laced
Yeah.
people to being offensive to non-straight-laced people, to where people think that this movie is not progressive enough.
Right.
And that's been a very odd progression.
Yeah.
Like to witness over my lifetime. You know what I mean? And again, I'm
No,
not
I
trying to
hear
speak
ya.
for 3 TV screens. They
And
might
maybe
hate it for a different reason, but
do you think 3 TV screens Do you think 3 TV screens means that like that how people say they hate something so much but they actually love it?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I say like I hate my cats so much, but it's like I hate them so much because I love them so much.
Right. Yeah,
You get it.
I get it. I just hate them.
Right.
Patrick Vicious
Patrick Vicious.
at Alleyway Crew, and crew is spelled with a K. Don't mess with Patrick Vicious.
I wouldn't.
You know, if you're part of an alleyway crew.
Yo, Patrick Vicious wears a leather jacket.
Yep.
Has a comb in the back pocket.
Yeah.
And super slick back hair.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Says, I know I'm in the minority, but I don't really like it at all. I used to actively hate it. Now I appreciate aspects of it, but it still kind of drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Wee wee. Also, maybe YY. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's WIWI.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
What if it's a wee why?
Wee Y. Okay.
Wee why?
Yeah. So the name is Claire de Lune, like the song, you know?
Yeah.
But it's C_Lair de Lune _.
Okay. Wee why says.
Wee Y says, thought it was an unwatchable mess the first time I saw it, but then I realized one of the songs got stuck in my head, so I gave it a rewatch. It's probably one of my favorite movies now.
Wow. I can understand that.
The power of musicals.
Yeah.
All right, and last up, Ghouls Gourd at Jules Ford.
No.
Yeah.
No. Oh my goodness gracious.
These Halloween display names, they've been fun, right?
They're so fun.
Says, this is probably the first movie I ever remember seeing, so I may be a bit biased, but it's genuinely sublime. I know there is the argument it's a bad film, but it has resonated with people for almost half a century. It's doing something right.
Sure. I'm stuck on this is one of the first films they remember.
I am too. I'm wondering if this person didn't see a movie until they were 18 years old, because this is an intense movie to watch as a child.
Or they saw this movie and they weren't supposed to.
Right. So there's some people that we do know. Now we're going to a segment of the show where we hear from strangers on the internet that we don't know. It's called Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. All right, so these are reviews from
during our live show.
Oh, we got to sing it. Definitely. I'll bring a little keyboard and we can sing it and do it.
Okay, good.
So when I recorded that little ditty,
I was
like, I need something because I had told you for the first episode, I was like, oh, I'll just record a little ditty for this segment. And then I
Yeah.
was like editing the episode and I was like, oh no, I need to record something for this. And so I was just in my dining room. I didn't set up a microphone. I just recorded it like on the computer external mic and like ran it through several filters. And I was just like yelling so that I could hit that final note. And I do not hit it, folks. But I was like, you know what? This is kind of exactly what I wanted. And I
Yeah.
just mix it real low and it's kind of funny.
I love it.
I
That's
always
great.
imagine like a little me like
Mhm.
runs into the room and it's like, "Ah!" and then like runs out.
I also picture a little you when I
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah.
Like scream, just be like, half star.
Yeah. It's just like a little guy.
Yeah, it's a
So
little
yeah,
dude.
yeah, when we do our live show, January 13th, Albany, New York,
Whoa.
you got to come.
That's happening.
I'm not lying. I've been having people telling me they're coming.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No one has told me they're coming.
You
So
you got to show up for this one, folks.
yeah.
This is the last time you'll ever see us.
Poof.
Michelle, you went and met some podcasting friends in England.
I did. They asked about the live show.
Are they coming? Let's just say
No.
they are.
Yes, they are coming.
Look, folks, people are coming from, at this point now, 2 countries, okay?
I'm like, shoot. Oh, Canada.
Maybe. Maybe. We got to get the Canadians down here.
We do.
Yeah.
I mean, they all have to do is drive.
It's
They
true.
could walk across.
Yeah, walk from Canada here. It'll be cool.
No biggie.
In
Yeah.
January.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Boots.
half-star review. Do you have any requests? Wait, oh no, wait, nope, sorry. I said when you get back that you have to read the half-star review in a British voice because you just absorbed it for a week and a half.
Yeah. And I said no.
Oh, come on. You can do it.
Of course I can do it, but that's not how it does on this show.
Can I just hear like something in a British voice?
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not as fun as mine. But I imagine more realistic.
Well, I don't know about that.
Is that how people sounded when you were there?
No,
Just like normal humans?
Right. Normal humans who have a nice, charming English accent.
I just imagine like sitting down in England and like walking into the airport and everyone's just like, "Oi, wow, hello!"
No.
Like literally like walking into like Oliver Twist or something.
I will say this though, right? Like where we live, we hear all types of accents, but you never really hear an English accent.
No.
And so going over there, it's all you heard, and it was amazing. Because I mean, I know this sounds probably very like a duh statement, but you never hear it in New York, truly.
Right.
And so I was just like charmed all the time.
Yeah.
And then you just get used to it.
I went to pick up sushi at just a random town up here, not a big populated town. And I went in, and the hostess was from England, but she was like very young, and I didn't want to be like I asked her, I was like, "Oh, where are you from?"
Yeah.
But I was like, it's so hard when you like look like me to like talk to people and not feel like a weirdo creep.
I suppose. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're asking,
Well, I mean, I'm asking this like young British woman who's far away from her country where she lives,
Right. But I'm sure she's used to it. I'm sure she's used to getting like, "Hey, where are you from?"
But it was like for what you said, it's like it's just not an accent that you encounter. And so I heard it and I was like, "Oh, where are you?
Yeah.
Tell me everything. Like, how are you here and why?"
We met a couple, an older couple that was from Wales, and then I thought of our friend,
Of course,
Michael from Wales, but their accent was so thick.
Yeah.
I could barely understand them. And the sweet old lady was just talking to me. I think she said something about Florida, and I just nodded and I was smiling a lot. And
you know what we should do?
What should we do?
We should ask Michael from Wales.
Yeah.
To send us a voicemail.
Yes.
and then we'll hear. Maybe his accent is super thick. I don't know.
It could be.
It could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so
Anyway.
I think I'm going to try to do this one. I'll do this one as Columbia. Bring out the old Lena.
Please. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Half-star review says 10 minutes later.
Right. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. It's really disturbing on its own, and the cheese doesn't make it better. Coupled with the deranged fan base, I honestly don't think there's a healthy way to engage with this film.
Wow.
Half-star review.
That was good, Seth. That was good. Okay. They don't know how to
There is no
way to
healthy way
engage.
to engage with this film. Okay.
All right.
3-star review says, interestingly enough, I can totally get why so many people adore this movie, but just as easily also why so many people hate this cult classic. I felt neither of these polar opposite emotions, but I did feel small parts of both. On the one hand, it is a brilliant, often hilarious, progressive, wild parody concoction of classic sci-fi flicks with great songs, set design, and a fearless performance from Tim Curry at the helm. But on the other hand, it is a relentlessly frenzied, silly, plotless attack on the senses to the point of excruciating weariness.
I was with the 3-star until the end, a little bit. Like excruciating.
Very well written.
Very well written.
And I think that this is how people can feel.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel too.
Yeah.
Without the excruciating, I wouldn't
Right.
use because he said I don't feel either.
Yeah.
You're just kind of in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, again, like, just to bring it back to, like, punk music, like, just imagine, you're an old fuddy-duddy and you walk into where people are screaming and hitting each other.
Mm-hmm.
You would be like, what is this? And, like, this movie, to me, it's very punk, It's very in your face and it doesn't care. And I can definitely see how this would wear someone down and wear them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
5-star review. I laughed out loud to myself. And it's one line, it's a question. And I don't want to hype this up too much, but normally for a 5-star review, I try to pick one that, it kind of encapsulates the whole movie and whatever. And I couldn't resist with this one. So the 5-star review simply says, who was I before the time warp?
That's it?
That's it.
Oh! Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I just imagined a person, finishing the movie and being like, who was I before experiencing this?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great review.
All right. So we talked about it. We heard what other people had to say. Michelle has a rating system, which is a schmovie, a movie, or a film. We also rate the movie 1 through 5, talk about recommendations and final thoughts. Michelle, do you want to take it away or should I?
Oh, you go.
It's a real pick your poison kind of thing, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, so as someone who grew up steeped in all types of subculture art and, again, appreciates and understands the art of messing with people and, like, just the joy that you can get from that, I understand Rocky Horror Picture Show on a very primitive level. I also am deeply impressed that this movie, much like Frankenstein's monster, as we've been talking about all month, was able to be resurrected by the people who love it, and has become part of culture to the point of, Glee covering it. And they did the made-for-TV live musical version of it a few years back. How? This movie is in the Library of Congress. How? It's crazy. And I'm so impressed with just everything around this movie, not necessarily the movie. I think that this is a schmovie. for sure. And I don't think that it cares about that at all. This might be shocking, but for a movie, I'm going to rate this 3 stars. And it doesn't mean that I don't like it or that I think it's trash. For some of the songs, I would say 10 stars, 5 stars, amazing, wonderful. But as a movie itself, I'm going with a insane 3 stars. And
We have
I don't recommend this to people who don't like this type of thing. This will grate on your nerves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's searching for this. Like, I don't know if anyone would come to me and be like, "Hey, would you recommend Rocky Horror Picture Show?" And I'd be like, "How come you have not seen it yet?"
Yeah.
Like, almost, like, how do you not know about it? But I also agree this is a schmovie,
Mhm.
100% a schmovie, and I was also rating it 3 stars with additional sprinkling of little rubies because I'm adding that to my rating system.
Got it. Okay. This gets a
Yeah, so I
sprinkling
have
of
a jar of
rubies.
rubies and I'm just sprinkling them on because I have much appreciation for the cult following and what it has done to the people. And like you said, it's in the Library of Congress. So that deserves some rubies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope that people don't listen to this and be like, 3 stars. They don't like it at all.
No, if they feel that way, they haven't listened to the whole
Yeah,
hour before this.
right. Okay, so Franktober is done. I've never thought about Frankenstein this much in my entire life.
Are you ready to leave them?
Yeah, but you know what though? I'm seeing it now in other things and like other movies that I've
Yeah.
been like thinking about watching, and I'm like, oh, this is also kind of Frankenstein. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
there's a really highly anticipated film coming out this year called Poor Things that I've heard. I've tried to avoid everything about it because I want to see it, but that apparently is in the vein of Frankenstein as well. And yeah, so this has been a month that will, I'm going to be thinking about Frankenstein for the rest of my life in a different way.
Yeah. I feel like I've been changed a little bit.
Yeah,
I met, my new favorite movie character,
that's
Igor.
true. Igor.
Oh God, I love him so much.
As we leave Franktober behind, we ended on a very musical note. But get it? A musical
You
note?
have to be so proud of yourself. Like I imagine
Can
you
I
just
tell
being
you?
like,
Okay, but can I tell you something that's sick? I didn't plan that. I literally just said it and realized as I was saying it how bad and cheesy that was. Anyway, we're ending
Anyway,
on a
toot
musical
toot.
note, but we're entering into fall and the winter time, and it's cold and it's dark, and I think that we should keep some of this energy, this lively energy going. And so, in November, we're going to be doing what we're calling Note-vember.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be looking not necessarily at just musicals, but we're going to be looking at movies about music.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is news to me. Okay.
Is it?
Yeah. I thought we were I don't know.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. And so did Michelle.
And so did I, apparently.
Yeah.
As I'm literally staring at our shared schedule, and I'm like, oh. Anyway, continue.
Did you think it was movies about writing, maybe?
No. I knew it was like musicals. Go ahead, continue.
So again, it's not like strictly musicals, but it's maybe not musicals. But we're just going to talk about movies that have to do with music primarily.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with a movie that I have been trying to figure out how to get on this show for a very long time. And I said, the first chance I get, we're doing it. And so I'm not putting it off. This movie is not streaming anywhere currently. I don't care. So we're going to talk about Josie and the Pussycats from 2001. Directed by Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfont, who made one of my favorite teen movies, Can't Hardly Wait.
That's a good one. I love that one.
Yeah. It's 98 minutes. And yeah.
Beautiful.
It's not streaming
God.
anywhere.
I'm curious if I'm going to start watching this and be like, oh, I know this one.
Here's the thing. I don't care. I don't
No, I know
care if
that.
this is.
I know
We're
that.
breaking all the rules here.
All the rules.
Yep.
You know, on the plane, I started watching Empire Records,
Great movie.
and then I fell asleep, and I was like, let me put on Billy Elliot, because I love Billy Elliot.
Got
Have
it.
you seen Billy Elliot?
Years and years ago, like when it
Yeah.
first come out. Yeah.
Same.
Mhm.
And I used to rewatch it and just like I had the soundtrack because I love T-Rex, and I was like, yes,
Yeah.
Billy Elliot, Billy Elliot. Anyway, I'll try Empire Records again, but Josie and the Pussycats, it's exciting.
Yeah. So we got Rachel Lee Cook, Rosario
Yeah.
Dawson, Tara Reid. We're in 2001, man.
Woo!
Yes. Very, very excited to talk about this movie. And again, Felicia has a 5-star movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
We trust Felicia.
We do.
Yes.
Hey, if you want to trust Felicia, we'd love it if you'd that was not the smoothest transition, but anyway. We'd love it if you'd rate us and review us. If you rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts from now until December 1st, you get entered into a drawing for a $50 Visa gift card. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. I also feel like December 1st is going to be here super soon.
I
And then
know.
it's going to be December 1st, and we're going to say it and be like, oh, wait, we have to pick the winner.
It's going to be December 1st. I'm going to forget to pick a winner.
Right.
And people
oh,
like,
shoot.
hey, what
Where's
happened?
my gift card?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, oops. I meant next year. You can also send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Let us know how you feel about Josie and the Pussycats or Rocky Horror Picture Show. What did we forget?
Yeah. Or
Tons
anything.
of stuff. Trust me, there's so much about this movie. It's insane.
So much.
You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. It's $5 a month. You get access to 4 additional shows. You get access to our patron-only Discord. And I think that we can kind of like tease this a little bit. We're going to start putting some voting powers into the hands of the patrons.
Well, the people have power.
Yeah, very soon.
It's all about the people. It's
Yeah.
all about the people.
I mean, do you realize how like friend-centric this show is? You know what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, it is called Movie Friends.
I know. But we're going to start giving power to the patrons to have their voice heard when it comes to themes and movies that we cover. So if you've been listening for a while and you're like, I really wish that they would do Spaceballs. Well, hey, here's your chance.
You
man.
and me both. I've been asking.
Nah. Anyway.
I have been, though. It is a true statement.
Yeah, anyway, it's $5 a month, you know. Who cares? Money doesn't mean anything.
No.
Yeah. Don't go to that
No.
doctor's appointment. Don't get your car
No.
fixed.
You're probably fine. Your car probably works.
You'll be fine. Get a bike.
It'll be fine. We're entertainment.
And then again, we have our live show coming up in January. Book your flights now to save money. You're going to kick yourself when you book an overnight flight January 12th to make it. And you're going to be like, I should have saved money. Ugh.
I can't miss this.
You can't.
This is the event
Look,
of that week.
We're probably never doing this again, folks. So, you know.
The theater will probably be like, nope.
Yep. Come find
Can't
out
come
what we
back.
smell like. Come find out how tall I am.
Oh, isn't it weird when you see someone in person for the first time?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't realize they were that short or
Yeah.
that tall or
Who-
that ugly.
You can find out if Michelle is taller than me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Sure can.
Yeah, you can find out if you're taller than Michelle.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see what sneakers I wear.
Oh, okay.
If you're into that. Hey, I always look at people's shoes. I love shoes.
I gotta buy new shoes before this.
I think I got to get like a new fit.
Yeah. Well,
We got to look.
my fit might have to do with the movie that we're covering, which I will keep under wraps.
Are you going to tell me the fit?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think we should probably coordinate.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Whew.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Michelle, good to have you back.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me back. I was
This-
afraid you were going to close the doors and be like, get out of here.
I kept waiting for the Michelle text of Anthony and I are living in England now. We're never coming back. Real quick note, I got so many comments from people who were like, Michelle is watching Hereditary?
Oh my God.
And I was like, no, she's not. Yeah.
That's very funny,
Anyway,
actually.
thanks, Michelle. This was fun.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks for listening. Until next week when we're talking about Josie and the Pussycats from 2001. Have a good one.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Music by Anthony Pecora. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us a rating. It really helps us find new friends. Thanks!